Alright, this is a screencast on Washington Irving's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So he's kind of like the father of American fiction. So this was kind of the first real tale to come out of this new world, this new America that was like completely made up, and it very deeply rooted in that American romanticism that we've talked already before, the influence of supernatural, influence of nature, those kinds of things. So what we have here is this story that is actually told um, from um, from an kind of an outsider's perspective. So the Diedrich Knickerbocker is the narrator of the story, and he's dead. This story was found in his belongings, and so that gives us kind of like the setup of this unreliable story that's kind of been passed from place to place. There's no way to verify the truth of it, that kind of thing. And so it kind of gives that setup. So you've got this town, this highly superstitious Dutch settlement in New York. It was called Tarrytown, or in the area around it was called Sleepy Hollow. And so it's a very dreamy, mysterious kind of place, almost as if like the people are in a dream-like state, and it's very enchanting when you go there and you enter into this sleepy little town, and you kind of get drawn into the magic and the superstition and everything that's going on there. So the townsfolk, he goes through Diedrich Knickerbocker here, goes through multiple like pages of description about the town and that kind of thing. And so the townsfolk themselves, they're obsessed with ghost stories and supernatural in general, very superstitious, that kind of thing. It says a drowsy, dreamy influence seems to hang over the land and pervade the very atmosphere. Some say the place was bewitched by a high German doctor during the early days of the settlement. Others that an old Indian chief, the prophet or wizard of his tribe, held his powwows there before the country was discovered by Master Hendrik Hudson. So you've got this town. Knickerbocker is suggesting that it's a mysterious kind of place that may have been bewitched by either a German doctor or a Indian chief. So a lot of mystery surrounding the town. So these people are given to all kinds of marvelous beliefs. They have trances and visions. They see strange sights. They hear music and voices in the air. The whole neighborhood abounds with local tales, haunted spots, and twilight superstitions. So they love the supernatural. They are obsessed with ghost stories. They love to hear them, and they love to tell them to others. And the most popular one that they talk about is the story of the Headless Horseman, the apparition of a figure on horseback without a head. It is said by some to be the ghost of a Hessian trooper. So Hessian soldiers were hired soldiers. They were German hired soldiers. They were hired by the British during the Revolutionary War. And this guy, this Hessian trooper, whose head had been carried away by a cannonball, is still haunting the countryside looking for his head. He rides around on his horse as a headless person, and he rides back and forth to the scene of the battle nightly in quest of his head. Okay, so there's that superstition, and it's the most popular story of the area. All right, so enter Ichabod Crane. So you have a young man, a young teacher who came to Sleepy Hollow for the purposes of becoming the new school teacher. Okay, so he was from Connecticut, He was tall but exceedingly lank, so he's very like Gumby. He's very tall but very gangly and skinny and scrawny. Narrow shoulders, long arms and legs, hands that dangled a mile out of his sleeves, feet that might have served for shovels, and his whole frame most loosely hung together. His head was small and flat at top, with huge ears, large green glassy eyes, and a long snipe nose, so that it might have been mistaken for a weathercock perched upon his spindle neck to tell which way the wind blew. To see him striding along the profile of a hill on a windy day with his clothes bagging and fluttering around him, one might have mistaken him for the genius of famine descending upon the earth, or some scarecrow eloped from a cornfield. So this guy is not attractive. He is gangly. He's tall. He's skinny. He has his face, God bless him, with his long nose and his long skinny neck, and he's just not a very attractive man. Okay, but he becomes pretty popular in the town. He's good with the kids. He's very intelligent. And more than that, he loves the supernatural, and he loves ghost stories. One of his favorite books is a story on, or is a collection of essays on witchcraft by Cotton Mather, who was a preacher, popular preacher at the time. So this guy is very, he travels a good bit from place to place, because he is a man of many appetites. He loves to eat. Never gains any weight though. But he's poor. He's a school teacher, which I can totally relate. So each week he travels to a different farm home, where he stays and he eats with them and lives off of the different families, and they come to know him, and they build a bond with him, relationship with him. The ladies especially loved him because he loved to gossip like a girl, and he loved to tell these stories. And so he loved to read these stories, and so it talks about how he loves to read these stories until late at night. These dark stories, mysterious stories, witchcraft. But he was naturally skittish, so he would read until late at night, and then he would be afraid to go to sleep, so he'd have to turn the lights on, and he was naturally skittish. So he is just kind of a contradiction in living form, because he loved this stuff, but he was also very fearful. So enter Katrina von Tassel, who is the daughter, the only child of a very, very wealthy man. And she's beautiful. She is plump as a partridge, rosy cheeked as one of her father's peaches, and she's well known not only for her beauty but for her expectations. She's a little bit of a flirt, and she's very charming. She dresses up, and she wanders around, and everybody is just really obsessed with her. And so Ichabod is initially drawn to her because she's wealthy, and her father, Baltus, is very wealthy. And it goes on like 2 pages of describing the mansion that they lived in. And so we kind of get the impression that Ichabod is extremely materialistic and extremely greedy. And so we get that very plain, that imagery kind of very plain throughout the story, just in the way that he is obsessed with materialistic things and food. The dude loves to eat, and so everything he equates with his love of food, and how nature can provide for food for him, and all the bounties of the farmhouses and that kind of thing. So he's drawn to Katrina because he knows that he could be very wealthy if he were to marry her, and he would always have plenty. And so he builds up this relationship with her in his mind before he even tries to win her over. He gets it in his head that he's going to marry her, and inherit, when her father dies, inherit all of these, all the home and all the bounty that the home and the farm can provide for him. Okay, the problem is that Katrina is very popular with men. She has lots of other suitors. She's impulsive and she's proud, and she's not going to be easy to win over. And so she has this really strong candidate. His name is Brom Bones. It's Abraham von Brunt. And he is everything that Ichabod is not. He is strong. He's athletic. He can ride a horse really well. He's a fighter, an awesome fighter. He loves to fight. That's like kind of his thing. He's attractive. He's mischievous. And so all these things make him more of a match for Katrina than Ichabod, because he's really everything that Ichabod is not. And so we see here that that Ichabod, but it doesn't bother him because he is, initially it doesn't bother him because he is focused on one purpose. From the moment Ichabod laid his eyes upon these regions of delight, her house, the peace of his mind was at an end, and his only study was how to gain the affections of the peerless daughter of Van Tassel. And it goes on to talk about how this enterprise is actually harder than beating dragons and giants and all those other kinds of adversaries, because of people like Brom Bones, who are his big competitors. I'm going to pause it here, and I'm going to continue with part 2.